welcome back to Alan's Horror World. My name is Alan. Of course, you guys already know that. So sorry for the slight delay on my reviews. School ended for real this time for me, and I delayed my reviews to today because I was so exhausted for the past couple of days that I didn't want to do it, and I was a little bit overwhelmed by the fact that I'm graduating tomorrow. Like, as this review it goes up tonight, I graduate tomorrow from high school. So yeah, I've been just a nervous wreck about that. So that's kind of why I didn't really want to do the review until today. But if I can, by tonight, you'll also be getting my review of the final chapter. If not, you will be getting it tomorrow morning at the least. So if you see me in the same clothes in my review of the final chapter, that's why. It's because I'm also filming that review tonight. So let's just go ahead and get started with my review of Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. So Friday the 13th Part 3 stars Dana Kimmell, Paul Kratka, Tracy Savage, Jeffrey Rogers, Catherine Parks, Larry Zerner, Richard Brooker as Jason, and is directed by Steve Miner. This was the second and last film to be directed by Miner, and this movie is really only notorious for two things. Being in 3D and giving Jason his iconic hockey mask that he would have for the rest of his existence. The third installment in the Friday the 13th series picks up on the day after the carnage with homicidal maniac Jason Voorhees stealing some clothes and killing a local store owner. Meanwhile, Chris Higgins and her sometimes boyfriend Rick are hosting a group of teenage friends at Chris's lake house called Higgins Haven. Despite a run-in with a local biker gang, they enjoy an amiable weekend together. That is, until Jason begins knocking off kids and bikers alike. So we've reached the installment of the franchise that is notorious for being in 3D, like I've already said twice. Yeah, we've reached this one. Because I think 3D wasn't popular in the 60s and 70s. It was in the 50s, and I guess they wanted to bring it back in this movie. And the 3D is literally the only thing the crew cared about for this movie. They didn't care about the actors' performances, they didn't care about story, they just cared about 3D. That's all they cared about, because they wanted to profit this movie because of the 3D, and because of that, in my honest opinion, this is one of the worst movies of the franchise. Yeah, I know, right? Like, you go from the first two movies and then just a massive drop down in quality. This movie is not very good. I used to really like this movie. If you ever got the chance to watch my ranking of this franchise a couple years ago before I deleted it, this was in my top 5. Now it's in my bottom 5. Won't tell you where it falls in my ranking, but I can just go ahead and say yes, this is definitely one of the worst movies in the series for me. But there are things that I really love about this movie. Not a lot, but there are a lot of things I really like about this movie. So let's go ahead and get into the admittedly few positives of Part 3. First off, you have Richard Brooker, who is one of the greatest Jasons to ever dawn the screen. Rest in peace to that good sir. He was a very good Jason. I really like the way he moves in this movie, and I love how brutal he is. He's still kind of a klutz. He's still kind of clumsy like he was in Part 2, but not as clumsy as Steve Dash portrayed him. This Jason is a lot more brutal, a lot tougher, and even though he gets defeated admittedly too easily in the end, I really, really like this Jason. Secondly, the score by Harry Manfredini, although he uses most of the music from parts 1 and 2, is still very good. The new music we do get here is great. I love his score in pretty much all of these movies that he at least did, because I know he didn't do the score in every movie of the franchise. Like, his music is in Part 7, but it's just recycled. He didn't do the score for Part 8, which kind of sucked. And I don't think he did the music for Freddy vs. Jason, and I know he didn't do it for the remake. But the new music we do get in this one is very good, although I still like the recycled music from the first two movies. Still adds to the atmosphere of a Friday the 13th movie. Third, the kills in this movie are just plain up awesome, even though some of the effects on the kills are a little mediocre and they're not great. Like when Rick gets his head crushed, it literally looks like a paper mache fake head. Still a great kill, by the way, even though you can obviously see the string pulling the eye out of his head. I still think pretty much every single kill in this movie is great. It's not the goriest in the franchise, but there are some really brutal and pretty nasty kills in this one. I can't lie about that. And finally, I love the third act of this movie. The third act is just plain awesome. It doesn't save the movie, it doesn't make it a great movie, and it certainly doesn't even make the movie that good, but the act of this movie, like the third act, is way better than the first two acts. Gotta go and give it that. I love the chase scene between Jason and Chris. She is one of the tougher final girls of the franchise. She fights back. She fights tooth and nail to live. She does not want to die. You can clearly tell that. And you know there is a little bit of history between her and Jason that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it does make the final act a little more personal, to be honest. But I do love the third act. Like, I really do. I love how much she fights back against him, even though she is afraid. She still has the balls to fight back against a 7-foot serial killer with a hockey mask and that has superhuman strength. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I do love the hockey mask in this movie. Just saying. I don't have any mixed elements about this movie. We're going to go ahead and get right to the negatives. First off, this movie is boring. It's boring as heck. For the first two acts, literally nothing happens except for Jason killing people. And everything between that is boring. Like, this movie takes so long to get to the third act. And this movie's like 90 minutes. It's not even that long. But it takes absolutely forever to get going. It doesn't get going until pretty close to the third act. It doesn't get going at all. And it doesn't help that the barn is the biggest freaking character in this movie and the most interesting one because everybody hangs out at the freaking barn. What's so special about this barn? It's just a barn. Go to the Higgins house. The Higgins house is much cooler than the barn. The barn ain't cool, guys. Quit hanging out at the barn. Unless you're having a party there, unless you're having prom there, quit going to the barn. It's not an interesting place to go, but they keep going to the freaking barn. I'm so tired of them going to the barn. Just because you're going to the barn, it doesn't develop your characters. It just makes your movie even more boring because the barn is not an interesting place to hang out in. Go hang out at the house. Do not hang out at the barn. I know I've said that many, many times, but do not hang out at the barn. I swear to God. What in the world did I just say? Don't hang out at the barn. Okay, that's the last time I'll say that. Speaking of character development, there is none in this movie. None of the characters are interesting in the slightest. I mean, the closest characters we get to being developed in the slightest are Vera and Chris. They're literally the only characters that are somewhat close to being developed. Chris just gets a really lengthy backstory flashback about how Jason supposedly did something really bad to her in the woods. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean. If you know what this movie is really about, yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about. I just don't want to talk about it out loud. I don't like saying the word out loud. And like Vera seems like an interesting character. She would have been a really good final girl, to be fair, but none of the other characters are developed in any way imaginable. Like, none of them are developed. It really makes me angry. Third, the acting is absolutely horrendous. Now, the acting in the first movie wasn't great, but there was some really good moments of acting, especially from Betsy Palmer. And part 2 actually had really good acting all throughout the movie, like, surprisingly. The acting in this one is atrocious. Like, no one is good in this movie. Nobody. Like, some of the line deliveries are so poorly, it's so poorly handled. Like, it just makes me want to laugh. It makes me want to laugh. Every single time I watch a scene in this movie where there's bad acting, it just reminds me that the crew did not care about the actors in this one. They just cared about 3D, which leads into my next negative. Next, the 3D was literally the only thing that people cared about with this movie, and not even that can save it. The 3D is so pointless. Like, I've never actually watched the movie in 3D because the glasses hurt my eyes. But, like, when I watch it in 2D, it's just so funny. Just, like, because, like, the entire time people are just sticking stuff into the camera like this. Oh, it's so cool. It's in 3D. And then they're also throwing stuff at the camera. Ooh, 3D. Ooh, 3D. So cool. It's 3D. 3D. It's in 3D. Isn't that cool, guys? Look, my tripod is coming out of the camera at y'all. It's in 3D. Like, it's so cool, isn't it? No, it isn't. Next, there's no story in this movie. Like I've said many times, the crew cared nothing about this movie except for the 3D. There's no story. It's literally just Jason killing people again, which would be fun if they made it interesting, if they made the characters likable and interesting and like you want to get to know them better. If the characters were likable, if they were interesting, and it actually had snippets of an actual story, it would be great. And luckily, the next movie in this series actually would have just the tiniest sliver of a story, and it ended up being my favorite of the franchise. Spoilers. There's literally no story here. This movie is just Jason killing people. That's all it is. It's just body bags just sitting out there just waiting to get killed. It's just mannequins waiting to be killed. That's this whole movie. That's literally all it is. And finally, the ending of the movie just rips off the original in part 2. It's another dream sequence ending. Stop with the dream sequences. I'm tired of it. And you have a zombie Mrs. Voorhees somehow with her head still, like with her head attached again. She jumps out of the lake, grabs Chris from the canoe and goes, "Whoa!" Just drags her in the water. Okay, 1, that was really pointless. And 2, you could have ended it right there. You had the chance to, but no, it was another dream. Ooh, she's crazy. Ooh. I'm tired of it. Please stop doing this. I'm tired of the dream sequences. Enough of the dream sequences. So overall, guys, Friday the 13th Part 3 is not a very good movie at all. I don't like this movie. There's things I love about it, but there's also things I really, really hate about this one. It is not the worst one. We will get to that soon enough. This is not the worst one. Trust me, it's not. There are things I adore about this movie, but there's things I really don't like about it. Like, there's things I really hate about this movie. To the point I literally had no mixed elements. I just had negatives all throughout. And I had a few positives, but it's just mainly negatives. I personally do not recommend this movie. I recommend some of the later sequels even, and even the first 2 movies. But if you want to watch this movie, if you haven't seen this movie before, I would suggest watching it, because who knows, you might like this movie way more than I did. And I really liked it on first viewing. And although my thoughts have changed, I'm pretty sure you might like this movie if you haven't seen it before. I'm going to give Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D a D+. So what do you guys think of Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D? Let me know in the comments below. Do you like this movie? Do you hate this movie? Do you love this movie even? Or is it just in the middle for you? Let me know, and we can debate about it in replies. Just let me know, because, like, people's opinions on this movie are all over the place. Some people say it's the best of the series. Some people say it's even the worst one. So I want you to go ahead and tell me where this movie falls in your ranking. I'd really like to know that as well. You don't have to give me your full ranking until I actually do the ranking of this franchise, but you can go ahead and let me where this falls in your ranking. Is it like your 6th favorite or what? So anyway, guys, be looking forward to my review of Friday the 13th, the final chapter, coming out tomorrow. I'm filming it tonight, but it's coming out tomorrow, and then we'll be done with this franchise forever, right? I'm just kidding. No, we won't be. There's like 8 more movies after that. It's just a joke, because I know there's almost a dozen more movies after this one. So, but anyways, be looking forward to my review of the final chapter tomorrow, and be looking forward to seeing me in the exact same clothes again while reviewing that movie. And also be looking forward to my reviews of every other movie in this franchise, and eventually my ranking of the franchise. And yes, I will get to my ranking of the Scream franchise eventually. Don't worry. It'll be fine. I will get to it eventually. But anyways, be looking forward to all of those reviews in the near future. And why don't you go ahead and drop a like on this video, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell so you get all further notifications from my channel, because YouTube doesn't always recommend. So anyway, guys, I guess that's pretty much it. So anyways, I'm Adeline. This is Adeline's Horror World. Of course, you guys already know that. I love all you guys to death. And until next time,